Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to see so many people, and I'm sure some others will try to come. My name is Hélène Cray, and I will be the moderator of this session. Before we begin and we enter in the topic itself, let me introduce the people. People are the most important part of the job. So I will begin with Mrs. Arundel, who is the president of FECREDI and FIC Technical and Environment Affairs. Then Mrs. Ray Garcia, who is team leader in the Directorate General for Energy at the European Commission. Mr. Carter Vels, who is Director for EU Affairs at Bouygues Europe and member of the ECTP board and the EEB PPP. So for those who are not familiar, it's Energy Efficient Building Public-Private Partnership. And then you breathe after that because it's very long. And then Mrs. Emmanuelle Cos, Director of the International Union of Property Owners. And my name is Hélène Cray. I am currently head of the unit in charge of clean energy transition in the Directorate General for Research and Innovation. And I breathe again, it's a long title. Huh? Thank you. So, here it is called Sustainable Built Environment for People. And we have looked to these words with a lot of care. Sustainable, built, environment, people. A lot of keywords. So I'll let you think on what it means. One thing I would like to say for those especially who are here for their first session in the Research and Innovation Days, we attempt to have a lot of thinking. As a matter of fact, we want to exploit the audience to get ideas and feedback, very cynically. So the idea is not that you listen to presentations, they will not be presentations. The idea is that we discuss, we launch a discussion here, you contribute, you participate, we even have a mic we could launch to you, and the first one to catch it has to answer or say something. And then, what I suggest is those who are interested and feel a bit stressed because we only have 1 hour, will go downstairs to the open space and continue discussing. The open space is made for that. So please use it. It's free. Continue to have ideas. Our main challenge on our side is to build the next support to research and innovation in Europe, which will be really integrating opinions, needs, desires, and ideas from people. Having said that, I stop here, because I don't want to orient the debate. It's not the role of the moderator. And I would like to give the floor to the first speaker. So, Mrs. Arundel, the floor is yours.
Right, well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation to come here today. First thing I would like to say is that the European Council for Construction, Research, Development and Innovation. Earlier this year, we launched a communication calling for a co-programmed European partnership for the built environment and construction. So we very much support the proposal for this people-centric partnership built for people. Secondly, FIEC as contractors, this is who we represent. And FIEC also shares the goal of a sustainable built environment for people. We believe that the Sustainable Development Goals are a way of helping us focus on what needs to be done. And FIEC as a federation is currently aligning our priorities with the Sustainable Development Goals. And we will then come forward with a strategy. However, we always stress that we have to be realistic and recognize the challenges as well as the trade-offs that are going to lie ahead. Let's take, for example, efficient buildings that can be self-regulated. And here I'm talking about smart readiness, which is the subject of a lot of work in DG Energy at the moment. A colleague here has been extensively involved in this, and we are supporting this. But the performance of buildings that will be smart ready depends on data regarding, for example, the consumption of energy by residents, their movements, whether they're at home or they're on holiday, for example. And what I would say is that are we as an industry, are we as contractors and the construction industry, as building users and as homeowners, are we ready to share this information? Some people still have a perception that this is a loss of privacy and control. In France, for example, of the smart meters that have been installed across the country, only 5% of the users have agreed to share their data, which means that at the moment the smart meter network is not very effective. Next, achieving a sustainable built environment means that we're all embracing a brave new world, one in which we have to balance the protection of privacy and the legitimate commercial interests of the industry, which have to be balanced against the need for increased collaboration and the sharing of data, both of which are necessary to create an ecosystem that will facilitate the transformation in the built environment. And finally, this kind of change of thinking is also important for the circular economy. So, for example, we all need to accept secondary materials. The industry, the designers, the clients, everyone. We also need to increase the reuse of water where this is feasible, all of us in the construction ecosystem. And we need to, for example, we need to stop replacing appliances with new ones and repair the ones that we have. But this is a culture change. And without these changes, I'm afraid we won't create the conditions that are necessary to achieve the most ambitious, sustainable environment for people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you also for sticking to the time allowed for everyone. I told them I will be strict on that. So they are fearing. Next speaker, and then before we begin for the questions, will be Mrs. Regathia. The floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, and also a pleasure for me to be part of this session. So from our side, there are three main issues that were giving the framework for our thinking on this partnership on the built environment. So the first very important aspect is that for us, we see that the built environment is really a key sector to tackle, more and more also with the new agenda for the next Commission with the EU Green Deal. So we really see that this is a sector at the center of the sustainability and of the decarbonization agendas of the EU. So that puts it under a lot of attention. But it's also quite a particular sector because we live in buildings, we spend more of our time there living, working, and it's also a sector that has quite an importance for sustainability because of water consumption, because of energy consumption, also because waste, due to waste management. And for this reason as well, is a bit at the center of several synergies with other sectors where a lot of innovation happens, such as digitalization, circular economy, sustainability, as I was mentioning, resource efficiency. So this is a bit why we think this is a very important sector to tackle. The second aspect that is important for us is that this partnership, we see it very closely linked to what is going on at EU policy level. So the decarbonization of the built environment and also the sustainability of the built environment is quite central to the long-term strategy for 2050 and the vision for a climate-neutral economy. This requires a social transition, a sustainability transition, and it has also a context in terms of legal and policy framework. The Clean Energy for All Europeans package really focuses on many of these aspects. And we also have, of course, all the related policy areas on sustainable buildings, on circular economy, on digitalization, on health, on climate action. So it's not a partnership the way we see it that happens in a vacuum, but it's really well framed into the legal framework that exists, and also the one that would be coming in the next Commission, given the priority of these issues. And the last point is that what we see is maybe missing for this sector as a whole, and going beyond buildings into the built environment, is an encompassing research and innovation support that we would see happening in this proposed new partnership, because our way of seeing it would be going beyond the building into the built environment, treating these different sectors that I was mentioning in a comprehensive and integrated way as much as possible, and bringing also the public and the private sector together. So this is a bit how we see it, but as it was mentioned in the introduction, we really need your input. So it's very interesting to have this discussion and to see how you see these elements that I have presented. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Katoivels, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I am very honored to be a minority today. I think it would be very appreciated by the President of the Commission. What I'd like to say, first of all, is that some of you know that 2 days ago it was the day without car-free day in Brussels and other cities in Europe. I don't know if any of you participated to this, because we're talking about people, the perception of people. And if you participated to a car-free day in a big city, you will immediately notice two things: fresh air and silence. So this is for the cars, but I like to insist on that because this is very concrete. How can we do that the city can be with fresh air and quiet also during normal working days, not only on a Sunday where the cars are not around? So this is also important for buildings, of course. Secondly, building environment, it was mentioned before, not only the buildings and the infrastructure. I think this is something that has been evolving. I represent here the European Construction Technology Platform. We started working with the Commission back in 2004. So you heard that we were talking about H2020. I'm telling you a bit more. FP7, H2020, a long-term collaboration between stakeholders and the Commission on energy-efficient buildings, starting from materials, evolving to the whole building, going to the district. So you see that there's already a natural evolution towards something more global, where indeed we have to work beyond the simple buildings. There have been very impressive things in these past years. You know that everybody talks about digitalization, and I think it's very sad that not often enough the example of the construction sector is taken to show the incredible potential of digitalization. We have done a whole revolution on this. It's important for the environment. It's important for the scarcity of resources. It's really something essential. The speed of work, the cost of work, and the revolution is on. Industrialization of the processes of construction, modular construction, is also becoming more and more important. And of course, as we heard, the role of circular economy and life cycle assessment of buildings. We mentioned what's the contact with the people. The contact between RDI and the people is not necessarily direct. It's important to have the public support. So political support is very important to all this. And then you have in the regulation, not only the bottlenecks, but also the incentives. I think it was not mentioned here, but public procurement can have a big impact on implication of innovation, having a larger volume of innovation being implemented. I see the time is running, so I would like to insist also on architecture and urban planning. It's also important, not only just the buildings. And finally, I want to tell you, what are we all working together? I will show you with science. I will not stand up, I don't have the time, but remember this: the higher quality of life for a large number of people with a low environmental impact. If you forget the sentence, remember the gesture. We are all working for this. High impact with a larger number of people and with a low environmental impact. This is really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will remember. It looks a little bit like in a plane, you know, the way out, so I will remember. Also. Thank you very much. So let's go to our last speaker before the discussion begins. Mrs. Kos, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Since I'm here, I think, to represent this aspect, I would like to insist on the last element of the title of this session, the people. And many of you mentioned it already, so I'm glad you did. I think the simple fact that I'm sitting on this panel today show that there is a clear understanding from the Commission side that R&I activities need to take into consideration the aspiration, needs, concern, and also maybe the capacity of the one who use, own, and live in our built environment. At my organization, the UIPI, we represent owner-occupiers. That's 70% of the population. We also represent private landlords, and these private landlords are often private individuals, so real consumer. But they own a substantial part of the private rented sector that house another 20% of the population. So for us, the people aspect is key, and I'm glad we include this in our program. It's a step in the right direction. But it shouldn't be some kind of buzzword, and this is what I'm very, very scared about. Because I think, we shouldn't end up having project ticking a box. Yes, we have this focus group, this element, this partner, and we have the people. No, it should be more than that. And it means, in my view, that R&I activities need to have some kind of market reality check. I sit in one single research project, and I sit in this meeting, I understand nothing, and I hear them saying, well, this balcony didn't fit with our solution, so we get rid of the balcony. But I'm there to tell them, no, people care about the balcony. If you don't keep the balcony, people will not use your solution. But you need more of these people sitting in this meeting to tell researcher, innovator, that we need to take into consideration the view of the people. So we need this people-centric approach. This is one thing. The second very important thing for us, when it comes to R&I activities, they need to be affordable, especially if we talk about housing, because affordability when it comes to housing is issue number one. So these are two very important elements. Another important element, when you talk about sustainability, you have to understand that people don't really care about having the product that is low carbon footprint from extraction until the demolition. What they care about when you talk about sustainability is that these products are safe. And when I mean safe, it means non-hazardous. We still have this asbestos trauma in Europe, and this is something we need to take into consideration. What people care about as well, they want long-lasting products when it comes to their building, but also the infrastructure they pay for through their taxes. They want things to last long. They want to make sure that they invest in something that will be there in 30 to 40 years. And also, they want products that are repairable and compatible with the existing system. That's key when you talk to people about sustainability. And just to conclude, all in all, I think what we need to do when you talk about R&I, we need to make sure that any single R&I activity from the Commission take into account the socio-economic aspect, all these non-technical barriers that we are very well aware of in Europe. But we know, for example, when you talk about renovation of buildings, that there are the reason why people don't renovate more than we don't renovate more than 1% of our stock a year. So these are these elements we need to take into account. And I'm glad you have this people aspect in your new partnership.
Thank you very much. There are things I really like to hear. Allow me just to recap a few points for the discussion. So, building on the end, reminding maybe that in the Treaty of the European Union, we are supposed, European Union, to work for the well-being of our population. It's worth reminding it every time we speak, because people have a tendency to see us in a different way. So I'm happy about that. But I see some points which are very critical. For instance, the sustainability and the real needs of people, what they really want, what they understand with sustainability. That was one of your main points. But also the link with urban planning. Things are interconnected. Built environment, it's inner cities for most of them, but not all of them. You build in countryside. And these are different problems. you spoke also about the instrument, and one of the question mark is what type of instrument will be, what type of measures will be the most appropriate. Speak about industry. Which are the industries behind, how to mobilize, how to provide also the industries with what they need to take the right decisions. And maybe there is a word which was missing, which is competitiveness of EU industry, because it goes to jobs, for instance. And then also a good remark on the regulatory tools, because at the end, we research provide with a strategy and indications for building policies. We build policies, but we don't do regulatory. This is the policymakers at the level of the thematic policies. So I will stop here, pass now the discussion at real discussion, and we have selected 3 questions, but you are not bound by these questions. You can continue the way you want. Are we really matching the expectation of citizens for safe, sustainable, and efficient? Safe? Yeah, I took safe before you say it. Safe, sustainable, and efficient built environment. Imagine that, second question, we invest massively in smart and affordable technologies as envisaged. We have these technologies more or less, we develop them. Is it enough? Do we need to do more? I refer also to discussion on socio-economic research. And if I go now a little bit lower, what type of activities we should support for reaching all our goals? Some of them are contradictory. People want more comfort, but we tell them you need to change your way of living. Otherwise, the planet is dying. It's just this clash in the mind of normal people. So now, may I just ask, maybe first the audience to make a first reaction and then we give the floor to the panel to make it more lively. Yes, but then I want a woman also to speak.
Okay. My name is Guillermo Cioni. I work for a technology manufacturer of solar thermal panels, so renewable heating systems. And when I hear you speaking about buildings, I actually see a system where resources are flowing in, like energy, water, and so on, and service is provided to the occupants, and then some rejects are coming out. So first point would be we need to reduce as much as possible these flows in and out in order to make them more sustainable. The second point I'd like to make is that if you look at the built environment with the Google Map satellite view, you will see that, of course, built environment occupies a lot of land, which is a valuable and shared resource. So I think that one way to make the whole system more sustainable would be to give back some of this space that you occupy. And if you look from the top, you will see that most of rooftops are really not used for anything. And so rooftops are a valuable resource. They need to be made more sustainable. They need to contribute to all the overall sustainability of the system. So rooftop can be used for photovoltaic, for other uses, for solar thermal, as we do, or for small wind turbines. I mean, the building, in order to be made sustainable, needs to contribute itself. So this is a matter, of course, of policy, regulations, and because if you go and speak with real estate developers today, they won't listen to you unless they're obliged to. And so the matter of the urgency for them to take investment decisions in this direction is something that must be addressed in the policy.
Okay, we take 2 others and then I let the panel answer.
Thank you. Congratulations for picking up this topic for the panel. And I have, as the Director of Research Center in Poland, in a country when the development of new buildings and in general with the usage of structure funds is very dynamic, we were trying to approach the large building companies with research and innovation programs or projects, offering them the test beds or the proof of concepts with the new technology they could embed in the process. What I found it was they were really difficult to accept the model of research and innovation in their building process. There are, of course, time constraints in the building process. There are cost constraints in the building process. They have limited risk factors to consider when they want to innovate. So in my opinion, after a small, short analysis, the build companies like IFAS, which built our headquarters, and other top 10 European civil building companies, they are really limited in testing and innovating in a way like research and innovation used to do in healthcare or agriculture or other domains. So my question is how we can find a solution to help them to innovate. And maybe one possible solution which comes to my mind is to follow the model for small and medium-sized entrepreneurship. When the small companies, startups, starting to develop this solution, and those companies starting to acquire them, but then how we can make sure that there will be European companies which will buy those solutions first. So I have many doubts about this, and I would like to have some comments, maybe if you have similar view. Thank you.
Thank you. A third one?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
Hello, my name is Lea, and I come from Denmark, University of Aalborg, and I would just like to say that if we need to create a more sustainable built environment, I think really that the people are the key element, because we need to change people's behavior, and therefore we need to do more research in how do we get people to take a more sustainable transportation means and leave the car, and we also need to maybe get into people's minds and figure out how do they then behave in energy efficient buildings, because we have the technology, but research show that that people, they don't use it enough, so the building can maybe perform even better. So we need to sort of get the layer of people even more focused on, I think.
Okay, first set of questions. Who wants to answer? Short, brief, 2 sentences.
This one?
No, the questions of the audience.
Yeah,
please.
I have 2 small reactions. The first one is the gentleman that was talking about innovation and the opportunities to innovate. One of our issues as contractors is that although we value the research programs, what we really need is the opportunity to build something that is innovative in a real life situation. And so what we're asking for is, in terms of public procurement, for the possibility to have variations so that we can go with an innovative solution and really build it in a real life situation. Here, though, we are competing against lowest price, so this is a challenge that we still have, and I think your point is important, and this is something that FIEC would like to see. The opportunity to innovate in a real-life project. And on the second thing, I agree totally with the lady who talked about behaviour change, but I think it applies to all of us, because I think, for example, I know that Brussels is aiming to become a car-free city and is reducing the number of car parking spaces, and that's great, but there have to be alternatives, and this has to come quickly. I was imagining, for example, trying to ride on one of these trottinettes with 5 bags of shopping from the supermarket, and this obviously doesn't work. So I think that in order to stimulate behaviour change and get to a place where we all want to be with this nice, quiet, calm city, we need to have alternatives, but very fast. Thank you.
I want to react also to the last comment and also come back to the aspect of expectation and what people want and how to change the behavior. I think, as you rightly say, we need a key element, and it's what we really need to take into consideration, is that we need to create this market. And I'm sorry with you, I don't fully agree. Of course, regulation is important, but too often I listen to manufacturers and they say, oh, I have this super new product, sustainable, but no one wants to buy it. So the same manufacturer might go to this policymaker and tell them, you know what, if you increase the regulation, this is good for business, this is good for environment, and this is good for job creation. Yes, but we know that we have some limit in terms of how much we can increase regulation. So I think what's much more clever is to invest in changing people's mind, and this is a huge work. And it goes beyond research and innovation, in my view. It goes into lots of work. It's also done into Horizon program. This is all this support action, all this coordination action, these millions of small activities that help to change people's way of thinking, help to educate them. Because in the end, you need to educate people. You need to make them understand that we need to make the shift. And when it comes to research and innovation, I think, yeah, it's not about people. Yes, people care about the environment. Yes, people care about climate change. But when you go to the people and you talk to them and you ask them what are they ready to change, how far they are willing to go, this is another debate. So for me, when it comes to R&I, I think the R&I activity should focus on understanding where people want to go and how far they can go, because there are also obstacles. There are psychological elements. There are maybe averse to innovation. There are legal elements, if you talk between landlord and tenants. There are also all kinds of other elements that we need to factor in our R&I activities. And I think this is, of course, beyond what it can be done. But that's why, in my view, there needs to be a lot of exchange between the R&I activities that you do under Horizon Europe, and also all this coordination action, all these projects. Because if you manage to exchange more, then you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you learn from each other. So.
We go to a second set of questions, but from time to time, let me be provocative. So let me be a little bit provocative, because when I listen to educating people, I get the feeling I'm totally stupid. And I would be happy if from time to time, some of the people wanting to educate me would just listen to me and just understand why I have this position. I will come, yes. Do we know really the expectation of citizens? Do they have factual elements for expressing their needs? It's just what I said. Honestly, I just had a long discussion and I told I'm an old lady. I don't take the subway at 9 o'clock in the evening because I'm scared. Because if you're facing a young boy of 18 years and me, I'm the favorite target, of course. Just think on that, all healthy men taller than me. No, just a joke, to make you provocative. But this is a real question. Are we really matching? Do we know it? Health and comfort of people in building. It was you speaking about safe. The best technology, first of all, should be safe. And from time to time, we forget about that. So I have been enough provocative. I go to the next series of questions. You have been very patient. Thank you very much. There are two patient people here. First there, and then you. Il était avant vous. Excusez-moi. Mais moi, je vois derrière vous.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. A question coming from, I'm a physicist working on recycling CO2 from the atmosphere. And just a point that does not appear here is when we build new buildings today, we emit a lot of CO2 because we are using a process to make cement and then later concrete. And there is a huge amount of concrete, like tens of gigaton every year that we make, that emit CO2, whereas it would be possible to do the contrary, to absorb, to make negative emissions. But what are we doing? I don't know what sustainable means, because this is the long term, and I will not live in the long term, but I know what act on a serious environmental problem means. So what are we doing, and do you have a plan for that?
Second. Next one, 3. No. And then
Hello, thank you. I'm Eugenio Quintieri from the European Builders Confederation, and we represent construction SMEs in Europe. So it was very interesting to listen to the different discussions, and I have a comment, more than a question. I think when you were, especially to what you were saying, that it's very linked what Emmanuel was saying about whether we are stupid, whether people are stupid. I think in general we need to eliminate the separation between we, the elite, and the rest of the people that do not understand how many nice things we are doing here, because it's what has brought to recent problems in Euroscepticism and so on and so forth. I think what we need to have a look at is, first of all, when we talk about research and innovation programs, is whether there will be deployment of the project proposals that then will be done, whether the project proposal have, first of all, a kind of business plan in a way, whether people are going to buy in. That's why I'm not, whether, of course, there is a psychological problem both towards people, but also towards companies, who was commenting on the contractor side. We are also contractors. But if I'm answering to the question that was asked before, if people are not buying in your technology, if contractors, maybe of course there is a psychological issue, but there is also the fact that maybe that technology is not convenient for that type of company for what it has to do. You are comparing healthcare with construction. We are talking about completely different sectors. We do tailor-made solutions in the building sector that sometimes cannot use replicated technology, for example. So I think this is the part that we need to answer. The second thing that I want to say, and I completely agree with Emmanuel, on the fact that there is a psychological issue, but we need also some financial, maybe contribution to stimulate the market uptake of the current technologies that we have at the moment. Because if, I know what Emmanuel was referring to when she was saying product manufacturers have low carbon emissions products, but they are not bought by people, by the ones that have to build, it's maybe because, I mean, it's simply, we need a bit more stimulus for certain solutions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I had someone here. No, c'était. I think it was there. I'm not sure. And then I have someone there and someone here. There and here.
My name is Sebastian Töns. I'm working in engineering risk, reliability and decision analysis. And I was wondering what are the metrics of, or are there metrics associated to this research program, so that we have an idea of how much the sustainability can be influenced by our research, by technical solutions, and being at the same time economically efficient, meaning industrially, but also macroeconomically, and safe. So what are the sustainability metrics? There is political aims and how they are translated to the research programs.
Okay, first, second range of 3 questions, and then we take the next ones.
I would like to come back to the question on concrete. You are bringing a new solution from fixing CO2 from the atmosphere, but there are already lots of works being done, both from Lafarge or Fraunhofer Institute. They have very specialized works on low carbon concretes, so they do a lot of work on this. There are other solutions that we apply also in the field. BIM is used to reduce the need for concrete. So if we really plan a building properly, thanks to digital architecture, we can reduce by 20–30% sometimes the use of materials like concrete. And the other solution is to promote, we do it also, promote new companies that create new materials, for instance, that mix concrete and wood, to reduce the use of concrete. So there are various solutions, but I think you are bringing a new part to it. And in particular in ECTP, we have partners who are more specialist. I'm not a specialist on concrete, but I can put you in touch with our specialist on concrete.
Maybe from my side as well, a couple of reactions. So on some of the elements that were mentioned, like for instance on looking at embodied carbon or at health and comfort, that for us was really quite explicitly within the scope of the partnership, the way we see it. Because, for instance, we're looking at energy efficiency, then the health and comfort aspect is always quite central. And the same, the work on sustainable buildings is really looking at aspects in relation to embodied carbon. So these aspects, we see them within the scope, but of course, the further definition will start from now onwards. So that is where we need this discussion to put it into a more detailed setup. Then on the question about citizens, so we would really to have this people vision, let's say, at the center of the partnership. But I would say it similar to my colleague. I think that it's not only through a research and innovation partnership that you achieve that goal. This is not the only tool that we have. We have other tools. It was mentioned a very good example of coordination and support actions under Horizon 2020. There are many schemes that they are being rolled out at the local level. They really reach out more directly to our citizens, and they will remain. And it's a very powerful tool, I think, and very closely related to policy. So it has this double angle, and it works also very closely with the Covenant of Mayors as well. So there we really have a number of tools that will remain and that are in very direct contact with the local level and with citizens. What we were identifying as initial objectives of the partnership, which we think are also important for putting people at the center, are to address those barriers that come from not having a comprehensive approach. So the idea is really to tackle the barriers that we see and that were mentioned, of complexity of the sector, of having a fragmented value chain, of needing to look at all these aspects that were also raised, but looking at them in an integrated manner and having a kind of a research and innovation plan for addressing those in an integrated manner. That's a bit the added value that we see, that of course cannot deliver on all the objectives for the sector, which will be also complemented through other tools, including in the next multi-annual financial framework, direct financial support also for building renovation, for instance, for sustainable investments in water management, in waste management. So it's not the only tool, that's what I would mention, but still we think that the added value that would have a value for people.
Thank you. I have already 3 people having asked questions. Ah, bah alors là, j'en ai 5, carrément. So I noted one at the end, one here, and one in, yes. So 1, 2, 3, and then I will take the next ones. Sorry for that. You have to queue.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask a question on business models. If you're looking to business models also in what you are going to do, because you mentioned circular economy. I think circular economy is much more than just saving materials and saving waste. It's about another behavior, not being ownership anymore. And I think maybe for landowners also it's a change. It's a change for small and medium enterprises. Who will deliver services? How will this interact? Is this also a topic of study, the whole changing business in circular economy?
Okay. Next one was...
Hi, my name is Lars Albinsson. I'm from Sweden, and I lead a consortium called Build 4.0 with a lot of construction players in Sweden. It's generally accepted that construction industry is having had the lowest productivity growth of any industry, basically since the Second World War. We've been benchmarking with other industries and found, for instance, that ship production is vastly more effective and cost-effective than compared to construction industries. We're trying to bring in technology and work from that area. And I think that if you look at the process, many people have mentioned that it's costly because it wastes a lot of materials and a lot of time. So you could have a more efficient, sustainable building by building more effectively and also lowering the cost. So it kind of addresses all these needs. But we were worried that we should have this cross-industrialization of the entire construction process as part of this, so we could, work on that scale and not just look at the industry itself. So it's my hope or question if you are looking to that.
other one was...
Hello everyone, my name is Javier Royo. I work for Ferrovial, the construction business unit, and I would like to thank you for all the speeches you made, and also it was very interesting for me and also important that Paul mentioned that the built environment does not only include buildings. Infrastructures are key, and in the European Union at the moment most or many of the infrastructures we have, they date from more than 30 or 50 years, and they were designed and built for other needs. Now these needs have changed. Citizens, as Emmanuel mentioned, require different types of infrastructures, or that we adapt these infrastructures. And actually, we can adapt them, and in order to adapt them correctly, we are used to build new infrastructures. But the methodologies and the materials that need to be used and the different methods that can be used for changing or adapting the infrastructures without taking them away and constructing a new one will reduce and will have an impact, direct impact in reducing the cost and also reducing the carbon footprint, as you will know that we use cement or concrete that was mentioned. That is the first thing I wanted to comment. And the second one is that in order to introduce innovations and different types of materials in our infrastructures and in the infrastructure and construction sector, what is needed is some kind of policies or some schemes or some types of incentives. For this, I agree that the coordinated super actions are a very interesting way to bring this issue. But the reality, and I just make a quick example, is that if you build a linear infrastructure, a roadway, and we have as a product an asphalt that is environmentally friendly, that uses recycled aggregates and so on, it is a more expensive product. It's a more expensive product, and at the end, this is some of the main issues that we have. Unless we have some incentives, at the end, the one that uses the less price to build something is the one that is going to get that type of contract. So we need also some type of new schemes so we can also introduce these new products that are more environmentally friendly into the day-to-day business.
So answers, and then the next set of questions.
I have an answer to that and one of the questions that I asked before, but I want to jump on what you just said, because I personally believe that in Europe, and we're all aware of that, we need some kind of Marshall Plan if we want to make our built environment more sustainable. And the Marshall Plan includes the R&I activity, but it goes beyond that. And it goes back to what people expect from us. I sit in meetings with individual people, average EU citizen, and they tell me why the EU is imposing all these rules on us on our building, but why the EU doesn't help us to do the change. They say, why don't we have access to ERDF funding? And I spend time explaining there are things done by the EU. The EU does a lot, but of course you are ultra fragmented sector. It's very hard for you to get this aggregated, level of project that's needed for some type of EU funding like EIB funding. But I believe that it's a work of the EU as well as the member states, as well as all of us, to work on this huge Marshall Plan. And this Marshall Plan is, of course, financial, but it's not only financial. We need also, and I want to jump back on what I said before, when I mean educating people, I don't think people are stupid, but people need help. So we need help on telling them what they can do, how they can do it. We need to bring the expertise, we need to bring the advice, we need to bring them closer to the professional. And I think this maybe can be done at individual building level, it can be done at multi-apartment building level, but it can also be done at district level. We might make a big plan, we renovate the entire district, we renovate the infrastructure, the building, and we involve everyone. They are not the best solution. I think all solutions are good. We just need to intensify our activities in that sense. So,
a Marshall Plan for buildings, environment, build environment.
And I hope Mr. Timmermans is listening to us, because I really sincerely hope that he's going to be part of the Green Deal. So,
okay, Mrs. Arundel first.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to react on the point about productivity, because we've heard these statistics rather a lot. And the industry is changing. You may know that earlier last year there was a joint industry manifesto on the digitalization of construction. We know we still have a lot of work to do. The technologies are out there. What we need is greater collaboration along the value chain. This is a change for the industry, but we are advocating for this. The technologies by themselves are not enough. We need more than this. I agree that we can learn from other industries, and in fact, as part of DG Connect's Digitizing European Industry initiative, our industry has been talking to other industries to see what we can learn. But I would also like to stress that we do need to solve the data ownership potential mess that is coming. And that is one of the things that FIEC is also looking at. So it's happening. It's maybe not as fast as we wanted to, but watch this space, because there are definitely an awful lot of things going on that will help us to more rapidly accelerate the transformation. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to react on a couple of points. On the question on business models, yes, that was part of our list of objectives in a bit more general way, but it should be cross-cutting for all the areas covered by the partnership, including circular economy. And then to react on the question of the Marshall Plan. So we fully agree, definitely, buildings is an area where we need to do more. And where we have already seen, in fact, in the political guidelines and in the letter from the President-elect to the Designate Commissioner for Energy, the request to look into the building sector. So the details are yet to be defined, of course, once the new commission is established and hopefully confirmed by the Parliament and all the steps are gone through. But this has already been flagged as a key area. But at the same time, just to say that we don't start from zero, that already in the current Clean Energy for All Europeans package, to give one specific example, legislation was coupled with a financial package. And there was already support from EIB for building renovation. There is already, for instance, the LENA facility that gives direct support to local authorities for work at district level, on mobility, on efficiency. So there is a lot that is already there. There is ERDF funding, which is, of course, co-shared at national level. So it's not in the hands of the Commission what is the programming, that is at national level, but it allows for lots of direct investments into energy efficiency, renewables, sustainability as well. So there is a lot that is there that probably needs also to be more advertised and better known, because there are a number of aspects that are already possible, but probably what we need also is to package it all together in a more visible way. That's for sure. And then enhance it for the next commission. Thanks.
We need to let the audience speak a little bit. But okay, let me be a little bit more provocative. First of all, I love technology. I'm an engineer by training. But Slido obviously faced some issues. Just making the link between both. Huh? Okay, so technology will never replace humans for me. Second, now to be a little bit more serious. It's very interesting, but what I see is that we cannot be only defensive, let's say. You speak on the Marshall Plan. We defend everything we do. First of all, it's clear that you cannot expect everything from the Commission. Let's state that the share of the European budget for research and innovation in Europe, in research and innovation in Europe, is 4%. Okay? So it means that we pave the way, we show the future, but we cannot do everything. And that leads me to maybe refocus the discussion also on another question mark, which is what can we do? Because here we are also asking you, what should we do to prepare for Horizon Europe? What type of instrument, what type of means, what type of actions? How can we mobilize the people? Very good to educate. I have some doubts on that. Huh? Let me just share something with you. I have a son who is very keen on environment and climate. He doesn't want to learn to drive. But he was late waking up to go to his university in UK, so he called the Uber. And as Uber was not coming, I drove him by car. And then I told him, my dear, you're just buying plastic bags for your shopping every time. Can't you carry a bag with you? Oh, but I forgot. Here I agree on educating, but I also would like to agree a little bit on alternatives. I try to be provocative also, to make you listening. So let's come back now, if you don't mind, to also the instruments, because everything you say is extremely interesting. What can we do as EU? Where can we have an impact? This is a critical question. And I would add a side thing. I'm not hearing woman except one. Okay, next speaker. Here first. You've been very patient, waiting for it. And then there.
Hello,
okay.
John Bartlett from Institute of Technology, Sligo in Ireland. Very, very committed to the quadruple helix and the citizen being at the centre of decision making, not just designing, but decision making in Europe. And you ask what Europe can do. Europe can lead the conversation with the citizen so that the citizen can make the correct choices for themselves. That is the first thing it can do. The instruments will follow after that. But when we say we need to listen to the citizen, often we say, you know, it's very hard to understand a citizen. It's not that difficult to understand citizens. You look to Maslow, you have hygiene factors, fear of death. You have consumption factors, which is the bliss of consumption. And if we're very, very lucky, we might reach self-actualization and morality and things like that. But when the conversation is always about consumption and the bliss of consumption, you said yourself, you can have your quality of life, but you're killing the planet. Therefore, you can't have both. So Europe can lead the conversation with the citizen, not so much by education, but by challenging the citizen, having the citizen actually at the centre of discussions and decision making, so that their views can be both taken on board and challenged at the same time.
I will ask you to accelerate and be very short, because we are approaching to the end and there is another session after. So 1 minute per question.
Hello, this is Jana Halonen from Finland, and you're asking about what the EU could do. I think the money runs the business here, so perhaps some taxation on the materials that are not wanted anymore, and then some incentives for the other materials that are more sustainable, like wood for building houses and so on. Wood is quite sustainable. I'm living myself in a house that's been built 100 years ago, and it's still running well.
Okay. Next. 1 minute.
One thing that's a real bottleneck for industry is stopping the actual introduction of new products is the whole standardization process, and that's being held up by the Commission and greatly complicated by the Commission and the double checking and triple checking with the legal side of it. So just to give an example, for one minor update in a standard, it's now taken 6 years and it still hasn't been updated. So if you want new products, low carbon products, new efficient designs, then sort out the whole standards process so that we can have safe, long-term, reliable materials going into society and not having to wait years for the approval process.
Let me just say, replace Commission by EU, and I could support it because it's Member States and Council, so speak to your ministers. By the way, we close here for the questions. I would like the audience to make a bit of a waking game. This is a mic. Everyone receiving it, even if it's in your head, sorry that, in 1 or 2 words, what will be very important for us to do in the new program. Ready? And I try to be blind, so you speak in the mic. Who is next?
Defining innovation pipelines.
Okay, send to someone else.
Citizen dialogue.
You're noting, huh, rapporteur?
Well, you would invest in low tech.
What? No, you had it before. Architectural solutions for climate change adaptation. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I deny all responsibility if someone is injured.
Sorry. Brigitte Jacquemont, I work at the French Ministry for Ecology, and I think what could be good is to have an alignment between the national and EU priority to work more together.
Do you want to have it, Anita? I said something already.
Thank you. Invited. The coordination between the different stakeholders has to be, like, let's say, driven by the Commission in the and maybe in-house of the Commission as well.
Be careful on your back.
Make this room with less air conditioning noise next time.
No fossil heating in 20 years.
Yeah, we need to improve efficiency.
Stronger coordination with member states and regions on the activities, a bit like Industry 4.0 they've done on the industrial side.
Last?
More citizen participation in science.
Okay, this now we're now finishing at the time which was allowed. I would like to thank you very much. To thank you also for your patience, to thank you for having participated to the nice game at the end. I'm sure for most of you it's the first time. Believe that when we did it as management in my DG, it was also the first time for me. I was quite surprised, so I share your feeling. But it's interesting. If you want to continue the discussion, please feel free. Go downstairs in the open space, go to the lab also, and ask whom you want to speak about, including if the speakers are free, including me, if you want to continue the discussion. You're here for that. You're here to think. And I wish you a very fruitful discussion. I wish you a very fruitful research and innovation days. Please bring your ideas. As I said, we build on people. Thank you very much.